Morning everyone. Hi, welcome to episode 24 of the Knitting Expat Podcast. Sorry, I had to look down and check for a minute there. Episode 24. Today is Sunday the 23rd of August. I am recording a day early and I'll explain why in a minute. My name is Mina. I'm coming to you from my home in Bahrain. I'm originally from the UK, but I live in Bahrain with my husband and our 2 cats. And so welcome to the podcast. If you're new, thank you for checking me out and taking the time to give me a go. And if you're a returning viewer, well, thank you so much for coming back. It's so lovely to be here and chatting to you guys again this week. Places you can find me on Instagram as Mina Phillip. You can find me on Ravelry as Mina86, and you can find me you can find the Ravelry group for the podcast as the Knitting Expat Podcast in the group section on Ravelry, and you can find show notes at knittingexpat.wordpress.com, and all of that is linked down below underneath the video on YouTube and in the Ravelry group and stuff. Everything's linked everywhere. And I also sell project bags on Etsy as Mina Makes, and that's also linked everywhere, but you can just search Mina Makes on Etsy. Reason why I'm recording early is I am actually flying to Dubai later today. I got a call from work last week, I believe on Thursday evening, letting me know that I was going to have to go over to sort out some stuff this week. So I'm leaving this evening, well, later this afternoon, and I'll be gone until Wednesday night when I get back. So I didn't really want to miss a podcast and at such short notice, and I honestly did not know what my internet speed was going to be like at the hotel I'm staying at. So I thought, you know what, I'll just record a day early and then have it all lined up and ready to go for Monday. So yeah, you guys should be seeing this go live on Monday or whenever you're watching this. So that's why I'm recording early. And yeah, I want to say thank yous. One thank you to say to Emily Estrada of the Fibertown podcast. Thank you so much, Emily, for the lovely pattern you gifted me. She gifted me the Collie Wobbles pattern, which is a sock pattern that she designed, and it looks really interesting. So I'm quite excited to try that one out. And also want to say thank you to everyone who sent me messages this week and like chatted in the Ravelry group and on Instagram and stuff. It's been really great. I know I say this every week, but I genuinely mean it. It's really lovely getting to chat to you guys. I don't know that many people here, so the interactions with you guys really means a lot to me. So thank you for that. And also I have to say a massive thank you to everyone who volunteered to test knit my patterns for me. I was genuinely so overwhelmed with the response that I didn't know what to do. It was I wasn't expecting quite so many people to message me about it. I very, very quickly filled up spots for test knitting, and it was getting really hard, and I really didn't like having to keep turning people down. So what I've ended up doing is I've posted a thread on the Ravelry group called Test Knitting, and everyone who's messaged me after I filled all the spots, I've already told them this, but if you go register your interest there for test knitting any of my patterns in the future, and let me know what type of patterns you're interested in and your general skill level. Like, no skill level is disallowed, as it were. I don't really mind. I'm quite happy to have beginners test my patterns as well, because most of them I'm trying to make them as beginner friendly as possible anyway. So let me know there, and then when I do have stuff that comes up, I can contact you myself rather than waiting for people to contact me, and then that way I don't have to keep turning people down, because I really don't like doing that. But what I'm going to do, because there's already over 20 people, I think there's quite a lot of people who've already signed up, so what I'm going to do is I'll leave it open until the end of August, and then on the 31st of August I'm going to close the thread, and then as and when patterns come up for testing, I'll just contact people on that thread to see if they're interested, if they're still interested or able to test knit a pattern for me, and then I'll work my way through that way. I think that's the fairest way I can think of to do it. yeah, so if you are interested in potentially test knitting a pattern for me at some point in the future, then please go register your interest there, and I'll get in touch when I have something that may be appropriate. What I'll probably do is I'll probably start from the beginning and work through the list, and yeah, figure it out as we go along, I guess. Also, in other news, my shawl for the Love of Rainbows, which you can see behind me up there, hanging there, is now available for purchase on Ravelry. I released it today, so technically yesterday, on Sunday today. So yeah, you can go and get it now. Thank you so much to everyone who's been so supportive and so excited about the pattern and stuff. It's a bit blah. As you can tell, I'm kind of a bit excited myself and can't even get the words out. So thank you so much for being so awesome, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all the different versions of the shawl. And right, I guess we better get started with the podcast then. Right, so moving on with the podcast. First up is finished objects, and I have 2 finished objects this week. First up are my design socks, which are now done. I'm so excited by these. I really love how they turned out, and I have to say blocking definitely made a difference on these. And how well you can see that there. The leaf pattern coming down, and I did a short row heel. Well, what I have in the pattern, I've a short row heel in the pattern, but you can substitute any heel that you like, and my preferred short row heel is the fish lips kiss heel, so I do that one. But because it is a paid for pattern, I can't include that in mine, but you're more than welcome to use the fish lips kiss heel, or even a standard heel flap and gusset would work if that is what you prefer for your socks. But I always think heels are quite a personal preference with socks, so just you do what you want to do. But I have included a short row heel pattern in the sock pattern for those who want to do that one. That's that. I'm really happy with how these came out. This will be coming out sometime in early September. And the yarn is by the Wool Barn, by the lovely Maya. And this is her rustic sock high twist. This is her card. And it's 80% BFL, 20% nylon, 100 grams, 365 meters or 400 yards. It's really lovely. And there was quite a bit left over. I mean, I say quite a bit, not actually all that much. I think there was a little over 20 grams left over at the end. So, a nice pair of socks. Yay! I'm really excited by these, and I really love how the colours are pulled and striped. You can see that better on the back there. It was dyed intentionally to do this, so half the skein was dyed green and the other half was dyed sort of the tealy blue, and that way as you knit they sort of stack up at spiral, so they spiral stripe, which is really fun. I really like that. And then my second finished object, it's a bit of a monster to get done, to be honest. I didn't really realise how big these were going to be, are Perry's socks. These things are huge. So this is Crazy Zalbable. Crazy Zalbable in the Herbstone colorway. It's this sort of blue and orange, which is really fun. And I really love how these knit up, and they almost are opposites of each other in the way they've patterned up. Not quite, but almost. So when I made the Crazy Zalbable socks for my dad, I got Perry to try them on before I closed the toe to see how the leg fit and see if he liked it, and he did, and the heel fit him fine. The fish lips kiss heel fit him fine, which is what that is. And so I knew I had the right measurements, and then I asked him about the length of the leg and if he liked it or not. The length I did for my dad's leg was, including the ribbing to the heel, was 100 rows, and he was like, well, that's the minimum I would want it to be. He'd prefer it to be longer, so I did this one 110 rows, which is really quite long. Then the fish lips kiss heel, and then I did the foot according to the cutout of his foot that I have, so this will fit him perfectly. I did the rounded toe at the top, which is my preferred toe method now. And yeah, so it's a 72 stitch plain stockinette sock. And I'm so glad I did a contrast heel, because honestly, this is all I had left at the end of it. The socks, I weighed them, so even with the contrast yarn as well, the pair of socks weigh 95 grams. And a Crazy Xalba ball is 420 meters in 100 grams, so they've got really sort of good yardage. So at least now I know for future, Perry's socks are going to have contrast contrast heels as a minimum. Potentially contrast toes as well, if he wants them to be if I want to be able to get them as long as he likes them to be. But this is the final thing to go as part of his birthday present of hand knits that I've made him. So I made him a hat, a cowl, and now a pair of socks. So I think that's his present sorted. His birthday's next Monday, 31st of August is his birthday. So those are going to him. And I'd knit those on 2.25mm needles, which is my standard for socks. If it's a thicker sock yarn, then I'll use 2.5mm, but generally it's 2.25s. Next up, whips. This section is going to be quite short actually, and I'll explain why in a bit later. So first up is my Viajant by Martina Bem, and this is being knit on 3.5mm needles. The yarn is Woolmise lace yarn, which I got at iKnit Fandango, and it's in the Grapes for Sherry colourway, which is this awesome mix of purples, sort of fuchsias and greens. And if I can show you, that's where I was last week, and up here is where I am now, where the marker is. It's hard to tell, but it's all scrunched up on the needles. But if you can't tell from looking at it, I'm on the border section. You see the lacy bit there. I'm halfway through the border section now. So 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I've got 10 of the eyelets. The pattern says you do up to like however many eyelets, but I'm doing a few more because I want a nice round even number. So I'm halfway through the eyelets, and then it's the bind off. So this will be a finished object next week, which is great because that was what I was aiming for. That was my target. I love how this is striping and not striping, flashing. I just think it's quite cool. I know some people really don't like pooly yarns, but I think it's quite fun. I figure the yarn's going to do what the yarn's going to do, and it's not like I'm planning on wearing this to a black tie event or a wedding or anything. This is supposed to be something fun and comfortable and swishy and cozy that I can wear on a plane when I am always cold. And I showed the picture of the pattern to Perry, the finished pattern, to Perry last night, and he was like, that's going to be big. I'm like, it's meant to be big. It's meant to be huge and warm and cozy. And that's in one of my elephant project bags that I made. This is one of my prototype bags, but I believe there's still one drawstring elephant bag in the shop, and that is actually the last of the elephant fabric. And my next whip is my Cozy Memories blanket in my little patchwork bag, tote bag that I made from the offcuts, the corner offcuts of my project bags. And I've made quite a bit of progress this week. Well, Sally from the Wool Diaries podcast, she hosted a Instagram sort of informal knit along for Sock Blanket Madness for this last week, and I took part and I added a bunch of squares. There we go. So I'm not sure where I was last week when I showed it to you, but where I was when we started Sock Blanket Madness was I'd knit up to these ones, and I added these 3, and then this row and this row of 5. So I added 13 squares to my blanket, which is pretty awesome. It would have been more, but then when I got the news of having to go to Dubai, my blanket knitting plans kind of fell to the wayside, and I had to reprioritize what I was going to be focusing on over the weekend. So that's that. I have all the ends still to weave in, but I don't mind doing that, and I'll get to it eventually. So I'm not too worried. And that is pretty much it for my whips. That's all I'm working on at the moment. I haven't cast on anything new yet, and again, because I got the news about going to Dubai, I suddenly realised that all the things that I thought I had all of this week to do, I had to get done over the weekend, and I didn't want to cast on new projects, because when I cast on something new, I kind of want to sit down and spend time on it. And I really wanted to cast on my shawl design, but I was feeling quite frantic and a little bit overwhelmed with everything that I now had to do in less time, that I didn't really want to start a project like that. I didn't want to start a project feeling that stressed. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to focus on the stuff that I already have on my needles. I'm just going to focus on getting those finished, or as close to finished as possible, so then I don't have to sort of stress about it too much. And I did, and I'm really glad I got the 2 socks off the needles, which was really my aim for this week. And the virgin is almost done. That'll be done by next week, so I'm not worried about that anymore, which means I can now relax. And I mean, peri socks, I only finished these yesterday, so definitely feeling a lot more relaxed. I got a lot of stuff done over the weekend, so that's great. And I took a bit of time yesterday. Oh, and I should tell you, my Cozy Memories blanket is now up to 70 squares. I took a bit of time yesterday, went through all my leftover scraps from, so what I do is I've got my basket of minis that I showed you guys the other week. But then what I do is, after I've finished adding a certain mini to my square, a certain mini to my blanket as a square, if I have any minis left over, what I do, any of it left over, I'll weigh it, and as long as it's at least 3 grams, I'll use it towards a mini skein swap. So I know some people only need 3 grams and some people need more, so depending on who I'm sending them to and how much they need, depends which minis I'll send. So what I did was I took some time yesterday and I made up some mini skeins. And previously I was just sort of sending mini skeins. I just balled them up so they were ready to knit straight away, but they don't look all that pretty that way. And I wanted to find a way to do up some nice pretty mini skeins. But I don't have a knitty noddy that people use to make mini skeins, or make skeins in general, hanks. And but what I ended up doing was I used a regular 12-inch 30 centimeter 1 foot length ruler and wrapped the yarn around that, and then just tied it off with a bit of string and a label. Nothing fancy, but it does the job. And so yeah, I spent a bit of time skeining up my minis. I'm taking part in a couple of swaps before I leave, so that's really why I was doing it, because I didn't want to have to stress about doing that next week. And so the minis for the swaps are already sorted, and these are what I have left over for future swaps. So yeah, I'm really glad I did that. And for those of you who don't have a knitty noddy and want to make nice looking skeins, you can use a regular ruler. And what that's really good for as well is that you can actually count the wraps, so you know how much yardage you're giving in each mini skein. So what I've done on the labels is I've actually written the yardage as well, based off of how many wraps around the ruler. So there's that too. And right, so moving on to needle adjacent projects. So this is the stuff I'm going to be casting on. And these will be the 3 projects, as well as the Viajante, that I take to Dubai with me. Pair of socks for me, and these are going to be my whiz bang socks. So I've already wound up my 2 balls of, this is the Knit Picks Stroll fingering in the, that's the County Fair? Yeah, Country Fair hand painted straw fingering. So that's all ready to go in my lovely project bag that I won from Holly, the Swift Knits podcast, in her month of socks knit along. And then I've got another pair of socks. This is going to be one of the pairs of socks that I'm making for my group of friends. I've already wound up this awesome rainbow Lang Jawol yarn for sock. This stuff, Lang Jawol Magic Degrade, and the colorway's 4172. I believe this is also called rainbow sometimes. And this one, I'm going to do the charade pattern. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. Sorry about the torn. I put a glass of water on there, and anyway, so this is sort of like it's a free pattern on Ravelry, and I really like the sort of texture. I don't think that showed up all too well on the camera based off of that. And that's in my Freckled Whimsy bag. And then the third project in my Nina Makes Rainbow bag is my new shawl design, which I haven't started, and I'll show you the yarn later because it's also part of my acquisitions. So I'll show you that in a bit, and that's what's coming up on my needles. Moving on to knit along news. So the Sunrays shawl knit along is running now until the 7th of September, which is while I'm away, and so I'll talk a bit more about my podcasting schedule in a bit. But so that's running until the 7th of September. You have until then to submit your finished objects. And then the 30th of September is the deadline for the rainbow cal. So anything with rainbow colours, anything that thinks it's a rainbow will count. Feel free to chatter away in the chatter thread. There will be some prizes for the chatter thread, which are it's going to be this some pattern prizes, and so obviously there are prizes for the finished objects thread entries. And if you want to see what those prizes are, I showed them on the last podcast episode, so you can go check those out. And then we've got the new knit along, the September knit along, or SeptCal, #SeptCal, and that is also running from the 1st of September to the 30th of September, although whips will be allowed, so you can start the project now as long as it's not finished before the 1st. Sorry, Hugo's distracting me over there. Okay. He may come over, he may not, we will see. So yes, for that knit along, it's basically anything that begins with S. Socks, sweaters, shawls, scarves, a pattern that begins with the letter S. So if it's a hat with a pattern, but the pattern name begins with an S, then it's fine. All of that really. And I'll be putting up a chatter thread for that soon. And I'll open the finished objects thread on the 1st of the month as well. So yeah, think about what you want to enter for those, and please do come and take part, because it'll be fun to have you guys take part. And there are prizes for the SeptCal as well. There's already a couple, and I believe I think someone's donating a skein of yarn, so I'm waiting for that to come in. And yeah, so it should be fun. That's it for knit along news, I believe. If you have any questions about the knit alongs, then please do let me know. That's Hugo jumping onto my table and knocking stuff over in the process. Yeah, I think he might be coming over now. So before I move on to the next section, we'll have a little Hugo interlude. Come on then. Come on. Come on. Oh, okay. Alright, we'll move on to the next section. Oh, why are you covered in fluff so much? Come on, stay here. Can you stay? There we go. Okay. Sorry, he's covering my show notes. He's laying down on top of my notebook. You guys can't see, but alright, this is gonna make this interesting. Is really Hugo? Okay. Right, so I'm sorry about this. I'll move him in a second if he doesn't go. Okay, so questions and answer section. I asked you guys last week what your most challenging knit was, and I realised I never actually answered the question myself. So I thought I'd answer that now. My most challenging knit, I think, for me was actually, well, there are two things I would say. One was my first pair of socks, which are these. Oh, sorry, Hugo just moved the camera. Hugo, seriously, I'm gonna have to put you down. Yeah, okay, thank you for the strokies. Alright, okay, I think we're done. Oh, hey, you being a little menace. Go on. These are my first pair of socks that I ever knit. They were knit toe up with a short row heel. They are loosey-goosey all over the place. There's ladders running up the side. There were drop stitches. There were holes in the sides of the heels, which I rather poorly patched and actually didn't patch properly at all. And they were knit on way too big needles. I knit these on 3mm needles, and it's a standard sock yarn, so it's a pretty loose gauge. Yeah, these took quite a while to knit. I started these in early December last year. I took them with me to Iceland, where I was still knitting on them, and then I finished them on the plane back from Iceland. And the irony there is I finished my first pair of socks right around the time when I broke my leg. So by the time they were done, I couldn't wear them. But I have worn them since, and these are actually really good house socks. So those are challenging because obviously first pair of socks, you learn a lot knitting socks. Anyway, I never thought I would knit socks. Initially, when I first started knitting, the socks were the last thing on my mind to knit. I was like, why would I knit socks? Why would I ever need to knit socks? There's some, I didn't get it. And I think a lot of people go through that. They don't necessarily get why you would want to knit socks. But also, because I was like, well, I live in a hot country. Why would I ever need to knit socks? But you knit socks once and then you're hooked, usually. That seems to be what happens to people. And I definitely have the sock knitting bug, and I love it. So that was that. And it wasn't, and the only reason I started knitting socks in December, like I said, it wasn't because I thought they were too difficult necessarily. It was because I just didn't have a general interest in knitting them. Now I really do have an interest in knitting them. And the second thing, and this is probably from a technical perspective been my most challenging knit. I'm just scooch back a bit so I can show this to you properly. And I did show this on a previous podcast, but it was one of my really early ones. So if you haven't watched my earlier episodes, you probably haven't seen this one. And that is the Camellia Dolman, which is a fingering weight sort of dolman. It's basically a circle. It's almost like knitting a giant circular shawl, but knitting it back and forth because there's a slit down the middle. And then you seam it. So here you have a hole here for the arm to go through, and then you seam it all the way along the edge up to where your waist would be, and then it's the same on the other side. So it's basically, it's a half circle. So it's knit as a circle with a slit down the middle, and then the way you seam it up makes it into a cardigan. And it's all over lace, and it was really intricate. I mean, it sounds really crazy now thinking about it, how quickly I knit this, but I knit this in 3 weeks. Bear in mind, I was completely monogamous on this, and at the time I was working from home, so I had very little, I had a lot of knitting time basically, and Perry was working in Saudi Arabia, so he was away all week, so I had a lot of time on my hands to knit this. And like I said, I was a strictly monogamous knitter at the time, so this was all I knit for 3 weeks. And it was one of those things that I knit that it was never going to be something that I was going to wear a lot. I knit it more for the challenge of knitting it and for the technique, and just because I thought it was a beautiful thing. And I knitted the pattern I found in this book, and as you can see, it's the cover pattern. I don't think my yarn choice was necessarily the best. It was quite a fuzzy yarn. It has a bit of mohair in it. It's not scratchy at all. It's not like the sort of mohair you'd think of. It's really soft, but it's not necessarily the best for stitch definition. But this is the book that I found it in. It's Lovely Knitted Lace by Brooke Nico. And when I saw this on the bookshelf and the bookshop, literally I picked it up and I was like, I have to knit that cardigan. I almost didn't buy it because I was just like umming and ahhing about whether or not I should get the book. And then I was like, and then Perry was like, no, you should just get it. You like it, get it, go use it. And he's right. I've knit 3 patterns out of this book so far. And this is you can see it better on the model there. It's the Camellia Dolman. It's so beautiful. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's definitely was really challenging. And you can see what it's like on the front there. Here's a picture of the schematic I can show you so you'll get an idea of, yeah, so you'll see here, it is basically a circle that you knit and then you seam different points together to get the cardigan look. So that was probably my most challenging knit. I really learnt with this one the value of stitch markers, because you have, what it is, I think it's like 18 sections or something, and those sections grow and that's how you get the shape basically. So I really learnt the value of having stitch markers, and it meant I never ripped that project back once. I didn't have to rip back at all. I only ever had to tink back a maximum of however many stitches were within one of those 18 sections. And I think at most towards the end there was, I can't even remember how many, but it wouldn't have been more than like 20 or 30 stitches. So really, stitch markers are your best friend. And so that's that for my most challenging knit. And thank you so much for all of you who've commented and left shared pictures of your most challenging knits. It's really interesting to see what you guys found challenging and what you learnt from it. And it's really I think you learn something from every project that you do, whether it's just reaffirming something you already knew or learning something new altogether. I think very early on, and even now, I pick patterns because I want the challenge of learning something new. And I always try and pick, if I'm going to pick a pattern to knit, especially for bigger projects like an intricate shawl or a sweater or something, I want to pick a pattern that's going to teach me something I don't already know. And I think that's a really good way to keep learning and keep advancing your skills with knitting, and with anything really it's the same. Moving on to other questions, I've had a few questions come in this last week, but what I've decided to do is I'm not going to answer them this week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of like gather up questions over the next couple of weeks, over this week and next week, I guess. And what I'm going to do after I record next week's episode, I'm going to record a special episode for the following week, because I'm not going to be able to record after next week's episode. I'm not going to be able to record a regular Monday episode because we'll be traveling, I believe, or we'll have just gotten to New York and stuff, and I won't have time, and I don't want to miss a week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-record an episode for that week, and it will be mostly answering you guys' questions. I already have like 2 or 3. So if you guys have anything that you want to know, anything you want me to talk about a little bit more, or any questions at all that you want to ask, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to answer them in that episode. I have a couple of things I want to talk about as well as answering the questions. So hopefully it'll be an interesting episode. So let me know. There's a questions and suggestions thread on the Ravelry group. So you can post your questions there. You can message me privately on Ravelry, or ask me on Instagram, or or leave me a comment on YouTube. So I'll just gather up the questions that people have asked over the next week, and I'll answer them all in that one episode. That way you guys will have something to watch on the Monday whilst I'm away. And on that note, I have a question for you guys. I've been thinking about this a little bit over the last week or so, and especially now with our upcoming trip and things like that, is about how you store your stash. How do you, if you have a yarn stash, and I know not everybody necessarily does, but how do you store your yarn stash? I mean, you guys see mine every week. What you see behind me, that is my stash. That's pretty much all I have. I have some other oddballs of acrylic and stuff which I don't use, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with, but that's pretty much my stash of yarns that I use. And I have it organised where the bottom shelf is mostly commercial sock yarn. There's a little bit of worsted there in the corner. Then up here I have my other sort of fingering weight yarns that aren't for socks. Then over there I have my indie dyed sock yarn that I have earmarked for socks. In the middle I have some Knit Picks Comfy and some Icelandic Einband yarn in rainbow colours, just because it looks pretty there. And then up here I have a sweater quantity of Mystery DK weight and some chunky yarn there. And then there's a little basket of Knit Picks palette yarn, and then I've got 2 sweater quantities of fingering weight here. One is the red Drops Baby Alpaca Silk, and then the yellow is Drops Alpaca and Goldenrod, and then next to that is my little stash of lace weight yarn. So that's kind of how I've got mine organised at the moment. I'm not necessarily sure it's the best way to have it organised. I think once I get back from New York and sort of reevaluate what I have, I might try and reorganise it slightly differently. I like having it all out on display and being able to see all of it. That way I know what I have, and just looking at the bookshelves I know I can see everything. There's nothing that I can't see, so I won't forget any of it. But I'm interested, how do you guys store your stash? Do you use the Ravelry stash function? I started uploading a couple of things, but I just found it really quite tedious to do it. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily the way I would want to go about it for me. But maybe it's just because it's quite daunting to input everything at once. But how do you organise it? How do you actually store your stash at home? Do you use like IKEA bins, or do you have it on display? Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you guys do, because I'm kind of rethinking how I'm doing mine. And so yeah, if you have pictures to share of your stash and how you organise it, that'd be great to see as well. So that's my question for you guys this week. That, and do you have any other questions for me to answer? Yeah, and I think that pretty much covers the Q&A section for this week. Moving on to shop update. Now, I know I said last week that there wasn't going to be another shop update until after we got back from New York, but after I said that and after I got off the podcast, I kind of just wanted to sew. And I had a stack of fabric that had already been pre-cut and prepped from when my mum was here. So, and that was the last of the fabrics that I'd prepped with my mum back in July. So I was like, you know what, I want to sew these up, and I really like the prints, and there's a couple of new ones that haven't been in the shop yet. So I was like, yeah, I want to do these now. So this is the last update before I go away, and probably will be the last update until the end of September, October maybe, because we're traveling in September. We don't get back until the 15th, and then we're away again for 5-6 days towards the end of the month. I genuinely don't think I'm going to have enough time to do a decent enough update. What I will use the time that I do have for is going to be prepping bags, and then I'll be able to get bags in the shop for October. So I'm going to, rather than rush and sort of do a poor job of it, I want to do it properly. So that's what I'm doing. And bags that I have going into the shop this week are these ones, and I'll quickly run through them for you. I have 5 of my sock size bags, and that's this size. So there's 1 in the sort of red and orange mosaic. I have 2 in this pink and blue sort of vintage looking flower fabric. And all of these, the lining is the same color as the handle, unless I say otherwise. I have 2 of these fun owls, and these owl bags are new to the shop. I haven't had these in the shop before. And this is actually all of my owl fabric that is going to be in the shop in this update. So there's 2 of these sock size bags. There's going to be 3 of my wide project. I'm actually going to recall rename these, not recall, rename these my medium wide wedge bags. because these are quite significantly larger than my sock size bags. So these are the medium wide wedge bags, and there's 3 of those in the floral dots. Then I've got 2 of my medium wedge bags in the owl print. There's 2 of those. Then I have 2 of my large wide wedge bags in this linen print. Sorry, there we go. And these are lined in this lovely sort of tan colour. I have 1 in this purple mosaic with the yellow lining in the wide, the large wide wedge. Sorry, I've got 2 of those, my mistake. And I have 1 large wide wedge in the owl, and this is actually lined in a natural sort of colour, it's got little flecks of other colours in it. So that's that one, and it's got the same fabric for the handle on that one. It's a one-off. I have 1 large bag of this rose print. I have 2 large in this linen, the gold and blue linen. I have 1 of the purple mosaic with the pink lining in the large. And I have 2 large in this blue floral linen. And I have 1 large in this purple and grey stripes, which I actually really quite like. So that's all the bags going into shop update this week, and that will be going up on Friday evening, 9 PM Bahrain time, which I believe is 2 PM Eastern in the US, like New York time, which makes it 11 AM West Coast time and 7 PM UK time, and I think that's 8 PM European time. I think that covers most of the time differences. It's the same time that I always put it up, so I'll post another update about that on Instagram and on the Ravelry group nearer the time as well. And what I'm going to do with this shop update is I'm going to have the shop open until the morning of the 3rd of September is when I'm going to shut the shop for our trip, and then that will be the last day I can actually make it to the post office, because we're leaving that evening. So I'll be going to the post office on Thursday the 3rd, and then we leave that night. So you guys will have the weekend, basically, the weekend and a couple of days into the week to place an order on the bags, and then, like I said, whatever's left, the shop will be closed until after we get back. Yeah, I think that covers it for shop news. And move on to acquisitions, because as you'll see in a minute, there is quite a significant amount of acquisitions this week. It's actually been a pretty crazy mail week, I have to say. I had a moment. I went to the post office one day, and I had to. What happens is, if there's a package that arrives that either needs a signature or is too large to fit in my mailbox, they put a little paper slip in, and I'd go collect it from the main post office, which is next to where my mailbox is. So that's fine. So I went the other day, and there were 2 slips in my PO box. So I went into the actual post office and handed the slips over, and they're like, "Oh no, they're being held at the main head post office, up on the other side of Bahrain, near the airport." And I was like, "Okay, well, do you know why they're holding it?" It's, "Oh, well, it's customs. You'll probably just have to open it and show them what it is, and they may or may not charge you something for it." I was like, "Okay, fine." So I got in the car and I drove over there, and so it turns out one of the packages that they had held was this little tiny envelope from Holly from the Swift Knits podcast. And so this is what customs were concerned about, was a bunch of minis that she'd sent me. So when I opened this up and showed them what it was, the guy didn't really quite know what to make of it. He kind of just looked at me like, "Huh?" Yeah, so that was funny for me anyway. And it was lovely to get these minis from Holly's. Thank you, Holly. That was a little bit of an adventure to go and get these. So those or one of the things that I got this week in the mail. That'll be going to my Cozy Memories blankets pile. When Perry got back from London, he also brought back my order from Maya at the Wool Barn. I'd ordered from her last update, I believe it was her last update, which was now over a month ago. But usually what I'll do is if I'm ordering something on Etsy from someone who's based in the UK, I'll just have it ordered to my parents because it's easier for them and it's easier for me, not having to deal with international postage and whatever. So I sent my order to her, to my mum. I ordered from Maya to my mum, knowing that Perry was going to be there soon and that he'd bring it back for me. So what I ordered from Maya was this lovely skein of her merino silk singles, and this is the pale cream colour. That's the tag, and this is 70% superwash merino, 30% silk. It's 400 meters, 900 grams, and it's so soft and so squishy, and I love the colour. And I have the perfect idea of what that's going to be used for already. I also ordered a skein of her smooth sock in silver, and this is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It's a beautiful neutral grey colour. And I also ordered this luxury sock, a luxury sock base in grasshopper, and this is 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere and 10% nylon, so it's her MCN base. It's beautiful speckled skein. I was about to say skeppled. It's a new word, skeppled. That's so beautiful. I love the colours in this. I love this section in particular. That bit there and this bit here. I just love all of it. It's beautiful. It's a really, really lovely squishy pair of socks, I think. And so this was originally my order from her, and she actually sent me a message after I placed the order. She was like, surprised you bought so many, you got like such a neutral like selection. And I was at the time, and I still am to a certain extent, trying to be a bit more thoughtful about the yarn that I purchase and to try and purchase more neutrals, because I realised that I have a lot of bright crazy colours and I need a bit of neutral in there to tone down the crazy. And I think these would be perfect. And then Maya is so amazing, she included a couple of extra skeins. One she said was for me and one was for you guys. So she sent another skein of her merino silk singles in the silver colourway. So this is 70% merino, 30% silk. So pretty. And this is the same colour as this one, but this is a plied yarn and this is a singles. And she also sent a skein of her tweed sock in Parma Violets, which is this beautiful purple with tweedy flecks. This is 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal Nep, which is the tweedy bits. And this will be beautiful for socks. Maya's tweed yarn is really, really popular as well. So I haven't quite decided which one is going to be for a future giveaway and which one I'm going to be keeping. I'm really tempted to keep the tweed for myself, but I also feel like you guys really ought to experience her beautiful tweed yarn as well. I don't actually have any tweed yarn in my stash, but which is why I'm tempted to keep it. But I kind of feel like I should share the love a little bit. And this will probably be the one I put up for the giveaway. But I'm not sure. I haven't even decided what I'm going to be using it for. I'll probably keep it as a future prize and figure it out nearer the time. Oh, and Maya also sent me, like that wasn't enough, she sent me some lovely tea, little sweets, and these cute little heart buttons, which are so adorable, which is really, really cute. And then I got an order from, not an order, I got a package from Vicky from Barenvilla, and I'd been in touch with Vicky talking about my design collection that I've got, my pattern collection that I was designing, and asked to see if she was interested in providing yarn support for the shawl. And she loved my idea and she was all for it, and so she sent me some beautiful yarn, and I showed a picture of it on Instagram, so you guys have probably seen it. So she sent me these beautiful colours, and these are both on her barefoot sock base. Sorry, that's her card, Barenvilla, and these are both on her barefoot sock base. And she actually sent me two of the green, but I've got one of them is already balled up. ready to go. And the green is forest, it's a forest colourway, and the grey is the best grey ever. I'm so excited to get started with this. I had hoped to have really cast it on by now, but like I said, I was feeling quite stressed over the weekend and I didn't want to cast on something that I was designing whilst I was so stressed. So that was that. Then I got the most amazing package from a lovely viewer who doesn't want me to mention her name, so I won't. But honestly, I was so overwhelmed by this package. It was insane. This was another reason why I had to go to the post office. So as well as the package of minis from Holly, I had to go and collect what was a giant box, literally a box full of goodies. So it was quite funny seeing the two quite disproportionate packages that were being held. And honestly, like I said, so overwhelmed by the generosity of this particular viewer. And I'd commented on a pair of socks that she had shared on one of the threads in the group, saying that I really liked the yarn that she was using. And she said that that she would like to send me some. And if there was anything else that I wanted to, like any other yarn that I wanted that I couldn't get, to let her know. And I said, so this was the yarn that she was knitting with that she sent me, which is Lana Grossa Fantasy. And these fun sort of primary rainbowy colours. So that was the first thing she sent me. Then I said that I really like to try some opal, and then in particular I really like the sweet and spicy, the cake pops, or the cake or lollipop, whatever they call it, colourway that I'd been seeing on Instagram. I think I first saw it when Susan B. Anderson had knit them, and I really, really liked it. And so she sent me one of those. I'm so excited by this one. And then she also sent me this opal, which I believe is Hunderwassers. I think this is basically like from their gallery collection, I think, because they're all based on different paintings. I really love the colours in this one as well, and that's roughly how it's supposed to knit up, I believe. So that's exciting. Really looking forward to that. Then on top of all of that, she sent me one of these, a wool butt, which is another supposed German sock yarn, which is really fun colours as well, really lovely. So she sent me 4 skeins of yarn. It just blew me away. And like that wasn't enough, she wrote me an amazing letter, which was like 5 pages long. She typed it up and everything, explaining everything that she'd sent me. She sent me some Werther's Originals, yummy. She sent me some, this stuff was amazing, really, really delicious. It's like lime buttermilk on dark chocolate, so good. I think Perry and I ate this in like one sitting. It's really good. And there's another bar of chocolate in the fridge already. I forgot to grab that to show you, but it was like, I think it's a raspberry flavoured chocolate one. Then she sent me this little bag. It's not really a project bag, but a little bag that she'd made, which is going to be great for travelling, for notions for travelling. When I want to take more than just a little notions box, I can take all my extras and other little like knitting accessories in this. She sent me what I believe is like a little needle wallet for little felt for sticking needles through, carrying needles around, which is really useful. She sent me some awesome little sticky pads from the Hemmer brand. They're really cute. And she sent me some awesome tea to try, and some bath salts, which I am so excited to try these out. I showed them to Perry and they smell amazing. They smell so beautiful. I'm going to keep these for when we go to Oman at the end of September, because the bathtubs in that hotel are incredible, and these are going to be perfect for a nicer relaxing soak. So excited. And probably what's one of my favourite things that she included in the package are some stitch markers that she made. She didn't just send a few, she sent like a ridiculous amount of stitch markers. I'm never going to run out of stitch markers now. She sent a bunch that are these. I'm trying to grab a few to show you. Probably should have set this up a little bit better. Apologies about that. A few that are like this sort of beaded type. Maybe actually quite a few that are like that. And then she's sent some with words on them. So I'll grab some to show you. So there's one that says like. These are twisted around a bit. And you got PSSO. That one says fast. It's all sorts of words. There's one that says sock, knit. I like this one. Oops. And then on top of that, she sent me one with my name. Here we go. Lena. How cute is that? That was so sweet of her. Thank you so much. You know who you are, and thank you. Really, really generous. You really didn't have to do all that. Just totally blown away. So yeah, generally overwhelmed. The final thing that came in the mail, which I picked up yesterday, so I'll just pop these back in the bag here, was a package from the lovely Hannah from the Rosehip Knits podcast. And I'd entered Hannah's travel along Cal a while ago when she'd hosted it earlier in the summer. Travel Cal, that's it, Travel Cal. And I won one of the prizes. I won her whips prize. So she had a prize for the chatter thread, the whips thread, and a prize for the FO thread. And I won the whips thread prize. And yeah, so that was really exciting. And she was actually on holiday in Sweden this summer, and so she sent the package from there. Hence the green envelope, which I instantly recognised as being from Sweden, and then I read her name on the back and it got me really confused, and I was like, she's in Australia or Tasmania rather. And anyway, first thing that came out of the bag is this awesome acorn tote bag, which is part of the prize. This cute little tin, which would be great for all those stitch markers I now have. Some Queen Rainbow food colouring, which I believe she's used these before for dyeing yarn, which I'm really excited about because I really want to try my hand at dyeing some yarns, and I think food colouring is probably a good way to get started with that. She sent me an abundance of tea to try. I'll grab them all. So she sent a few of the mango and nippon, a few rooibos, never figure out how to pronounce that one, and a few of the Australian afternoon, which Holly had sent some of this to me before from Australia as well, and I actually really liked it, so I'm glad I have a few more of these now as well to add to the pile. She sent me this handmade, hand-carved sort of needle keeper, which is really quite cute, really lightweight as well, it's nice. And oh, I won more stitch markers from Andy of the Andre Sue Knits, which was part of the prize package. And this one is, I seem to constantly be getting your stitch markers, Andy. And these are her unicorn stitch markers, which are super cute. So let me get one to show you properly, I think. You can see them there. Sorry about the glare. Take one out, might be easier. There we go. I don't know how well that's even going to focus or not, but you can sort of see. Really cute. And she sent me this awesome postcard. She wrote a note on the back for me from that she got in Riga. And I instantly recognised the beautiful Latvian mittens. And then and then the last thing she sent me, which wasn't even part of the prize package at all, this was just a little extra that she sent, just because she's amazingly awesome. She sent me one of her hand-dyed skeins of yarns, and how amazingly beautiful is this yarn? It is gorgeous. I love it, and these are perfect colours for me. purples and blues, really rich sort of speckled yarn. Love it, it's so beautiful. And got a little tag on it. It's 80% merino, 20% nylon. Beautiful, thank you so much, Hannah. Genuinely overwhelmed with the generosity of all the lovely people in the knitting community. It is just mind-blowing. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for the acquisition segment. And if you could see the state of my desk, you'd be laughing right now. I can't even see my notes underneath all this stuff. So just 1 second, I need to shovel stuff over. Right, so that pretty much covers it for this week. I'll be going into my week in review now. And I've had a very busy weekend, if you haven't already gathered from all the knitting and all the sewing that I've been doing. But like I said, with my upcoming trip to Dubai, it's just been a little bit hectic around here, which is fine. I don't mind hectic. I'm pretty much done for sewing, like I said, for the next few weeks. So it's going to be more knitting, less on the sewing side, but that's just to be expected with all the travelling. Perry was in Dubai on Thursday. He was there overnight, Thursday, Friday. He came back Friday afternoon, and then now I'm going, and I get back Wednesday evening, and it looks very likely that Perry's going to be back in Dubai on Thursday. So it looks like we're just constantly missing each other this week. Either I'm in Dubai or he's in Dubai. He's had to go for work as well, so thankfully it's either one or the other, so there's always someone here with the boys. I did notice the other day when I think it was on Monday when I went to pick up Perry from the airport when he came back from London, I saw Tyson, who's our neighbour's dog across the road. And usually if he's out and about on his own, he doesn't venture very far from his home. Like, he doesn't go too far away. He only ever goes like halfway down the road outside of our compound. He really doesn't go very far. And I saw him quite a way off. And he was sort of like trotting along, and then I recognised the car that he was running next to is his owner's car. He was being taken out for his afternoon walk while his owner was driving, and he was trotting along next to the car. And I was just like, seriously? If you have a dog, you should at least be prepared to walk your dog, even if it is hot outside. But I guess that's how they do things over here. I've pretty much already covered everything else that's happened this week. You guys have always shown a bit of an interest and wanted to know a bit more about life over here and stuff. And so while I won't go into it too much, I thought I'd taken a bit of a video clip a few weeks ago when my mum was here actually, and we were driving to the airport, took Perry to the airport when he was going to New York, I believe, and I was sat in the front seat next to him, and so I videoed some of the journey as we were driving along. And there's a couple of really good examples of last minute lane changing without indicating, which seems to be very popular in the Middle East. It's worse in Dubai than it is here, I've noticed. It's definitely nowhere near as bad here, but I think it's also to do with the fact there aren't that many as many cars here as in Dubai. Driving is just a little bit of a I wouldn't say like it's overly dangerous, but it's definitely more dangerous than in the Western world. It's people aren't as fond of using their indicators as they should be. They don't check their mirrors. They just randomly change lanes as and when they want to. If you indicate that you want to change lanes and there's someone, you know, in that lane, but you know they're far enough back that you know you can quite comfortably get in front of them. As soon as you start to indicate, they will usually put their foot down and speed up so you can't then cut in front of them. So for that reason, a lot of people don't indicate, and I think it's just more dangerous that way. They just swerve out in front of you. So over the years, we've gotten pretty good at reading cars, as it were, reading people's driving styles. And if you're on the road and you see this car coming up next to you, you can pretty much tell whether or not they're going to try and cut in front of you. So we've gotten pretty good at that. But anyway, like I said, I took a bit of a video clip of that and I've sort of pieced it together, so hopefully it's not too boring. I've tried to keep it short, and apologies if you get motion sick. You may not want to watch this. It is footage filmed from a moving car, so there's going to be movement. It's not as shaky as I thought it was going to be, but it's a moving car, so I'm warning you now. If you don't like motion stuff, probably don't want to watch that bit. But yes, that's coming up at the end, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you for checking me out. Thank you so much. I can't believe there's that many people, that many of you who are coming back every week to hang out with me. It's great to hang out with you, and I really love doing this. So yeah, come join the group if you haven't already. Leave me a question if you have one. Answer the questions that I've asked you this week, and I really love the chat that we have going in the group, on the chat, on the episode threads, and in the chat threads on the knit-alongs. For the knit-alongs, it's really fun. We have quite an active group, and everyone's really friendly. So come on, join the fun, and yeah. Thank you again so much. My pattern is now out, so you can go get that. I would love to see your versions of the shawl. If you do, knit it up, tag me on Instagram. I'm Mina Phillip there, and yeah, I'd love to see it. So that's really it now. Thank you again so much. Have a lovely week, and I hope you have plenty of time for knitting. Take care. Bye.